Our first speaker to share his insights is a digital marketer turned environmentalist advocating for healthy oceans and climate change mitigation. He's the project manager of Save Philippine Seas, Change the Current, a climate change adaptation and training program for adolescents and educators. He's also a climate reality leader for the Climate Reality Project Philippines. He is a for-parent, kapareho ko pala siya, for-parent, a full-time foodie, and according to his friends, a 5-star cook. Sir, kailangan kong matest yan. Ha? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Harvey Perello.
Thank you, Daryl, for that introduction. So just for everyone's knowledge, and just to be clear, when I say according to my friends, I'm just talking about a handful of people. So look at your expectations a bit. Okay. For today, I'm so glad to meet everyone. I'm so happy to be with you this afternoon and be able to share with you some of the insights that I know that could help you in narrating stories with a climate lens, so that your films that you'll be working on could actually help enable climate action. First off, let me introduce the organization I belong to. I belong to Save Philippine Seas. It's a nonprofit organization that aims to narrow the gap between scientists and the general public. And the goal is to empower citizen-led initiatives towards collective action and behavior change. As mentioned, I'm one of the project managers in Save Philippine Seas, and I'm a climate advocate and an ocean-loving environmentalist. I used to live in Bataan, so yung bahay ko is just a kilometer, or my house was just a kilometer away from the shore. And I enjoy talks about climate change and its connection to our oceans. Now, you may be thinking that since Harvey used to live by the shore, he's been advocating for the environment, maybe he's been in this journey for quite some time now. Well, that is not really the case. I started my journey in 2016 when I joined Climate Reality Project's training program, which opened possibilities and led me to a series of questions regarding our environment. And the first question that I had to answer was, how do I go deeper in the climate movement? For some of you who just started in this climate advocacy, and even for those who have been in this advocacy for years or decades already, for sure, the moment you step in this movement, you've got so many questions. Climate change is a super complex topic, and it's so easy to get overwhelmed on where to start, what to do, how can I contribute to be part of the solution. And if you had the same experience as I did in the past, you probably did your own research, read gazillions of articles, went through or watched a lot of videos and even documentaries. And for me, one of the materials that became pivotal in my life as an environmentalist is the documentary that is called Chasing Coral. Some of you may be familiar with this documentary. It's a documentary that talks about the impacts of climate change on our coral reefs, how important our reefs are in our lives, and what we can do to protect them. And for me, this is a super powerful documentary because it was able to bring a problem that is normally out of sight and out of mind to our screens. It was able to do that by just showing to us what is happening out there, what are the impacts of these issues, and how it affects us. But on top of that, I think Chasing Coral actually did more than just show us how things are changing in our environment. The way that Chasing Coral was able to tell the story of how coral reefs are being trying to follow the 4 P's of storytelling. Some of you may be familiar with this, so but we're going to be going through this concept this afternoon. So first off, Chasing Coral was able to identify its purpose, and it was able to achieve its goal. It was able to identify its goals and objectives. Second is people. It was able to involve the right set of individuals to create the film and also understand who they are trying to target, who's their target audience. Of course, places, if you've seen the film, it has been shot in the Great Barrier Reef. It's a very important location in our ecosystem. So it really is an effective location to shoot. And it was able to deliver its powerful message by going through a very good process and delivering it. So we're going to be focusing on those 4 Ps this afternoon so that you'll be able to apply them in narrating your climate stories through a climate crisis lens. And it's really important because if we're going to be discussing climate change, we always talk about data. We always talk about graphs or analytics. But we always forget that stories are actually data with a soul. And that is what we want to maximize for you to be able to communicate stories with so much soul in it that could drive changes in our environment. So first off, let's discuss first the first P of the 4 Ps of storytelling, and that is purpose. So for you to be able to create a powerful story, sorry, I think my internet's lagging. Let me switch off my video for a while. So for you to be able to create a powerful story, you have to understand first your goals and objectives. And for your goals and objectives, it's important that you're able to outline what you really want to happen. So remember that the goal of this session or this program is for you to create a 5-minute short film that has a strong climate lens narrating the climate impacts Filipinos experience. And syempre, you may be thinking that it's quite a challenge to compress such a complex topic in just 5 minutes. And that is why the first thing that we'd recommend that you do is to narrow down and sharpen your focus. I've gone through your proposals yesterdays, and I saw that most of you were able to do this already. You were able to narrow down your focus to some of the topics under climate change. But for those who hasn't figured this out yet, then maybe you can try to explore some of these topics like coastal impacts, food security, disasters, or even youth and how their development is affected by the climate crisis. Now, after choosing the topic, make sure that you reflect on it and ask yourself, how did you end up caring about the topic? What made you decide that you would focus on that topic? And also, ask yourself, why does the story need to be told? Do you want to tell this story because you want to raise awareness about the climate impacts and the solutions available as of the moment? Just so you can also lead your viewers to ask more questions about climate change? Or do you want to trigger emotions? And in so doing, you're going to be able to activate those emotions that could lead to climate actions and would also help your target audience become personally invested in solving the crisis. Or you would like to inspire actions by transforming the increased awareness and activated emotions to actions so that we can help solve the problem. Now, regardless of your objective, you can definitely embrace your artistic freedom, your creative juices, and use all of them in creating your films. But make sure that those films are guided by facts and real life experience. And this is so important. If you've been in the climate advocacy, you know that misinformation, information taken out of context, and false news have been proliferating in the climate movement in the past. And we don't want to add up to that problem because the problem is complex in itself. Climate change is very complex, and adding that additional layer would just make everything more difficult to understand. So make sure to keep this in mind. Now, here's an example of one of the materials that Save Philippine Seas created in the past. So for everyone's knowledge, Save Philippine Seas is not really a film producing organization, but we take pride in the materials that we are producing. to communicate science to our target audience. And this is one of those materials. Change the Current was an online campaign. And what we did is when we were drafting the idea of this campaign, we want to make sure that we are setting our goals straight. We want to make sure that our target audience would understand climate change. But it's quite difficult because there's a lot of things that we have to discuss. So we first narrowed down our target audience. And what we did is to ensure that we communicate the science of climate change in a bit casual manner, complemented by great visuals. So that's how we started this campaign. And later on, I'm going to be showing you another example. Now, once you've identified and set your purpose, then what you can do now is to focus on the people. When I say people, I'm talking about you as the storyteller and also your target audience. So when you talk about your role as the storyteller, reflect on yourself and ask yourself, why are you the best person to tell your chosen story? Why will you be the most equipped, and what skills do you have that would make you the most capable person to tell your chosen story? And at the same time, also reflect on your personal experience. Did you have any experience that would help shape the story? And that is so important because that would add so much depth and meaning to your film if you're personally invested because of your personal experience. Now, after yourself, then let's now talk about your target audience. You have to know your target audience's profile. And when we say no, then you have to understand their entirety, their persona. Because the reason why we need you to do that is if everyone is your target audience, no one is your target audience. Gone are the days that when we do communication, we can do blanket communication approach, meaning one message would fit almost the entire population of your audience. But now, especially in the topic that is so complex, such as climate change, it is not that effective anymore. That's why you have to communicate your message based on the interest and the profile of your target audience. And for you to be able to identify your target audience's profile, here are some questions that you might want to ask yourself. First, what demographic are you targeting? Are you what age or gender? Are you targeting the youth sector? Are you targeting the parents? Second, what do they know already? How deep is their understanding of climate impacts and climate change? Third, what do they think they know? As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of misconceptions and unclear information circling and surrounding climate change. So through your film, your goal is to debunk that. Your goal is to break the walls of misconceptions and provide clearer information. And then last is, what climate impacts have they experienced? If for you as a storyteller and a filmmaker, it matters so much that you have that personal investment and experience on how climate change impacted your life, the same goes with your target audience. The more that it's more relatable to them, the more impactful your story and your film would be. If let's just say that you don't know your target audience yet, you don't fully understand them yet, we recommend that you conduct desktop research, check online what kind of behavior they have, what profile they have. Also, you can conduct interviews and focus group discussions. You can run surveys and feedback forms just to get to know your audience better, or better yet, go to the places where they live, conduct field visits so you can live their life even just for a day. And that would add more appropriate context to the film that you're trying to create. Now, here's another example of a material that Save Philippine Seas created. And in connection to understanding our target audience, we are aware and we acknowledge that although our target audience for Change the Current are those people who care about the environment, they still don't know the basic terminologies that are being used in the climate discourse for them to be able to fully understand the topic and also act upon it. So we created this campaign, Hey Siri. It's technically a glossary of terms for all climate change related vocabulary. And when we did this, we were thinking of how we can make it appealing and also at the same time fun to go through as they try to study these terms. And that's why we use Hey Siri, which is obviously a pun of how, or a pun based on the voice assistant of Apple. And again, complemented by visuals for them to be able to fully understand what we're trying to convey. Now, after understanding your target audience, it's now time to dig into the place that you are going to be featuring. You have to choose the right setting and location. And of course, it has to be relevant to your film. So you have to ask yourself, where is your story based? Because it's so important to understand how your physical space or the physical space that you would choose could be very unique and important to your audience so that your film would be more impactful. But at the same time, I'm not just talking about the physical space. I'm also talking about the non-physical space, like the emotional or mental space of your target audience or what you would like to communicate. Do you want to show to your audience how turbulent and chaotic climate impacts are? Do you want to share some hope and make them feel hopeful by just viewing your videos? So you would have to also consider that. And this is something, as filmmakers, make sure that your videos appeal to the senses. Now, after going through all of the first three P's, we now go to the final P, which is the process. What's your process in delivering your message effectively to your target audience? For most, what they opt to is to go with the usual beginning, middle, and end, but you might want to mix it up a bit just so you can really capture the attention of your target audience. And also, you have to start and end strong. Another tip is for you to start with the end in mind, and that would help you process and create a process on how you would be able to effectively deliver the stories to your target audience. Also, consider what language you will use to best convey what you're talking about. Make sure that you use relatable and easy to understand language, and ideally, the content is also localized. As much as possible, avoid scientific terms unless you're confident and you can guarantee that you can provide enough context about them during the film. And whenever we talk about climate change, I'm not sure if you would agree, but if you browse online and see articles about climate change, most of the time, the messaging that the communicators want to send is, you should be worried. Or if not that, you should be extremely worried about climate change. And we cannot really dissociate the idea of doom and gloom when we talk about climate change. However, I encourage you that you also convey your message following a mix of emotions. And the reason why we are encouraging you to do that is so you can avoid degradation desensitization. A bit big word, but what does it mean? Sometimes if you're going to be talking to a person about climate change for the first time, and they learned about the impacts of the crisis, they may feel strong emotions towards it. It could be fear, anxiety, worry, and sometimes those emotions translate into action, which is good. But overexposure to environmental issues and news about climate change may desensitize your audience and could result in apathy or inaction. And that's what we want to avoid. And for you to be able to avoid that, we encourage you that hopefully in your films, you would be able to show both the scary scenarios of climate change while also exposing your target audience to the vast ocean of possibilities. Climate change is a huge, depressing, complex, difficult to solve topic, but it doesn't mean that we haven't had progress for decades. And it would be noteworthy for you to be able to communicate that as well in your video if possible. And when you process your video and when you create your videos, make sure that your elements are consistent. Ensure that your audio and visual elements are aligned with the message, emotion, and impact that you want to convey. Now, this is the final example that I would like to show you. And this is the only video I think I would show you for this talk. We created human interest stories in collaboration with the students that we worked with as part of Change the Currents climate action training program for adolescents. What happened was we trained them about the science of climate change. We gave them seed fund to implement climate initiatives in their communities. And we also asked them to document it using their smartphones. Pretty much similar with what you are about to do for this program. And they were able to effectively compress the necessary information about climate change, what's happening, how they're trying to solve the issue on a community level, and at the same time, encouraging people to take part in the climate movement. And originally, when we designed this, when we created this video, the idea is for the youth members, these people, to be able to encourage other youth sector members to join the climate movement. But we found this video very useful recently. Recently, we conducted a training program, this time for teachers to be able to, for them to be more equipped in teaching climate change concepts in schools. And part of the program is we asked them to pitch proposals that would help their communities become more climate resilient. And whoever will be receiving the, or whoever will be chosen for among those proposals will be receiving seed funding for them to implement the project. And what we first got from the teachers is that, wait, it's so difficult, mahirap to, it's something that we cannot do. We don't know climate change. We don't know what to do and how we can help our communities. But when we showed this video to them and seeing students, senior and junior high school students, implement their own climate initiatives, they gained more confidence that they are also capable of driving ripples of changes in solving the climate crisis. And at the end of the training, we were able to receive 26 proposals from around 40 teachers who would like to help their communities become more climate resilient. So in these kinds of activities, we hope that you realize your power to help others dip their toes in the water and be part of the climate movement. And at the same time, similarly, how Chasing Coral helped me become more active in the climate movement, we hope that your films could enable the viewers to go deeper in solving the climate crisis. And last but not the least, take this as an opportunity for you to influence others. The way you'll be designing these videos, these stories, could be an indicator, could be the next step for you to continue telling the story and encourage others to be part of the climate movement. So that's pretty much it. I hope that you learned a lot of insights from what I just presented. But if you would like to continue the conversations, you can connect to our social media pages, or you can reach me via email. And I think there's a Q&A as well later, so I'll be more than happy to answer your questions.